I remember the exact second the room tilted. The candles were still burning. Someone was clapping off beat. A glass chimed for attention, and my wife stood up beside the cake like she was about to give a toast. She smiled first, that smile she used when she wanted an audience. "I just want to lay down a few ground rules," she said lightly, like it was a joke everyone was supposed to laugh at. They did. Her friends laughed, the kind of laughter that assumes permission. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I felt something inside me go quiet. She kept talking about respect, about expectations, about how marriage meant accountability. Her words floated through the room like confetti, colorful, harmless looking, impossible to gather once released. She wasn't talking to me, she was talking over me. And in that moment, standing there on my birthday, surrounded by people who thought this was entertainment, I realized something with frightening clarity. This wasn't spontaneous, this was rehearsed. When she finally paused, waiting for applause, I lifted my glass. The room leaned in without realizing it. "There will be no rules," I said evenly. A beat. "Because there will be no marriage." Silence has weight. It slammed into the walls, and just like that, everything she thought she controlled slipped out of her hands. But that sentence wasn't the beginning. It was the end of a very long calculation. We weren't always like this. That's the part people never understand. We were built slowly, deliberately, the kind of relationship that looks solid because it was solid once. We met before the masks hardened, before success sharpened her edges, before admiration turned into entitlement. She used to listen, really listen. She used to ask questions and wait for the answers. We laughed easily. We planned vacations we never took. We talked about the future like it was a shared property. I invested fully, emotionally, financially, legally. That's what makes betrayal intimate. It doesn't arrive screaming. It arrives wearing your history. The shift was subtle, always is. Small corrections in public, jokes at my expense. "Relax, I'm kidding," said with a smile that never reached her eyes. I noticed how often her friends were around when she did it, how confident she was when witnesses existed, how careful she was when we were alone. Control likes an audience. I told myself it was stress, success, social gravity. I told myself marriage bends. That's what grown men tell themselves when something feels wrong, but admitting it feels worse. The truth didn't announce itself either. It whispered. A phone turned face down too quickly. A password changed without explanation. Conversations that stopped when I entered rooms. Then one night, a message preview lit up her screen while she was in the shower. "He agrees. He won't push back if you do it publicly." That was it. No explicit affair. No cinematic confession, just enough context to collapse the structure. I didn't confront her. That's where most people fail. They confuse shock with urgency. I sat on the edge of the bed and reread the message until the emotional pain burned off and left clarity behind. She wasn't cheating on me physically. She was outsourcing control. Her friends, a lawyer cousin, a life coach who charged by the hour and spoke in absolutes. They were designing a version of me that fit her future, and I was supposed to applaud. Something changed in me that night. Not anger, not heartbreak. Focus. I documented patterns. I noted dates. I listened without reacting. I smiled when appropriate. I played the part of a man who hadn't noticed the walls moving inward. I pulled financial statements quietly. I reviewed shared accounts. I consulted a lawyer under the guise of estate planning. No accusations, no threats, just preparation. I learned the difference between joint ownership and assumed ownership, between love and leverage. She underestimated silence. Most manipulators do. I installed nothing illegal. I followed every rule she thought she was about to impose. I simply paid attention. Her friends became bolder. Advice turned into strategy sessions she forgot to hide. I learned the vocabulary of people who believe they're smarter than consequences. I also learned something else. She needed the performance. Whatever this was, it had to be public. It had to establish dominance in front of witnesses so she could rewrite the power dynamic permanently, which meant she'd choose a moment where I was expected to be agreeable, a celebration, a milestone, a birthday. So when she insisted on hosting it, I let her. I even thanked her. Our apartment was full, music low, lighting flattering, the kind of environment where people feel important simply for attending. I watched her work the room, confident, radiant, already narrating the story she'd tell later. I waited. When she stood and lifted her glass, I knew the exact order of events. I'd rehearsed it privately. She would frame it as humor. Her friends would laugh. I would be cornered into compliance or resistance. Either way, she thought she'd win. What she didn't know was that I'd already exited the marriage legally. Not finalized, but protected. She didn't know assets were separated. She didn't know the prenup clause she'd mocked once over wine. She didn't know I'd written my sentence weeks ago. The moment landed exactly as predicted. Her rules were polite knives, curfews disguised as concern, expectations framed as maturity, all delivered with that smile. When I spoke, I kept my voice level. Calmness terrifies people who expect emotion. No rules, I said. Pause. No marriage. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look at her friends. I looked only at her. For the first time in months, she didn't have a script. The laughter died first. Then the music felt too loud. Someone coughed. Someone else pretended to check their phone. She tried to recover, asked if I was joking, laughed once too loudly. I set my glass down. I filed 3 weeks ago, I added. This is just the courtesy of timing. The power shift was immediate. You can feel it when it happens, like air pressure changing. Her friends avoided eye contact. One of them whispered my name like it might bring me back into alignment. Apologies started then, soft, panicked, disorganized. I didn't stay for them. I blew out the candles myself and walked out of my own party. Afterward, the messages came in waves. Anger first, then pleading, then revisionist history. She told people I blindsided her, that I humiliated her, that I was cruel. I let her. The evidence spoke quietly where it mattered. The legal process unfolded cleanly. The friends who had encouraged her retreated when they realized there were no theatrics left to hide behind. Control evaporates without an audience. The strangest part wasn't relief. It was how light everything felt once I stopped performing. I slept better. I breathed deeper. I stopped rehearsing conversations in my head. She tried once more, weeks later, asked to talk privately, said she never meant to hurt me. I listened. I always listened. When she finished, I said nothing, and that was enough. I don't regret the sentence. I don't regret the timing. I don't regret the silence that followed. Some endings don't need shouting. They need precision. She wanted rules. I gave her an ending instead. And I've never celebrated a birthday more honestly since.